this. Cool. All right. So modular synths. This is like a basic rundown of modular synths. But basically, the thing with modular synthesizers, and remember, this is just building on what we talked about yesterday, but the main thing about modular synthesizers is that every part is its own separate part. As you just saw in that video, every single part is its own separate little part, and people could put them together kind of in any way that they saw fit. And it wasn't until the EMS sent the Emerson modular synthesis system that he started to make ones that were more like packaged together. And then that kind of led into the Mini-Moog Model D, which is what we still have today. And then other people were making synthesizers around this time as well, but Moog was really the one that got like super, super, super famous. So the thing with the modular synthesizers is that all the parts have to be connected, and you can basically choose any part you want. But you still have to have an oscillator, a filter, and an amplifier. And then you must also connect some kind of controller like a keyboard to control the pitch and the gate. Note on, note off, pitch, which note is played, that kind of stuff there. All right, let's talk about that later, Johnny. That your keyboard's not going to get here until June. So basics of modular synthesizer. It's like a basic modular synth, and this is actually in your Canvas. Here, let's just show you this here. Just going to pull up Canvas real quick, and I'm going to show you this link for this thing. And it's a pretty cool little thing. It's very, very basic, but it will. Here, let me just show you this. Kind of give you something to play with a little bit. Just kind of wrap your head around all this stuff. It's this one here, Basic Modular Synth in week 5. Click on that, and that'll bring you to this website here, this online modular synth, to learn how synths work. And what this does is it's essentially just an online little synthesizer. And it's like interactive, and you can connect things together. So like, if you look at these over here, these are your oscillators right here, and that's what this is in the notes. This notes is kind of describing everything here. So I've got the box that says 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is over here, 7 is here, 8 is here. So you can see where all these different parts are, and if you go to the next page in the notes, it just explains what each one of these is doing. So if we look back to what we learned about yesterday, you have the oscillator that goes into the filter that goes into the amplifier. So if we take this and we take our oscillator and we have outputs down here, see here on the screen, you can see these are all, if I zoom in a little bit, you can see these are all your outputs here for different stuff. And let's take an output here and go from an output into the filter here. We got to go into the filter where it says audio in, and you can just mouse over these and see what they say here. So I'm just going to go out from, let's go from the square wave into the audio in on here. Boom, there we go. And if you want to see a basic setup, this would be a basic setup right here. So you could just like open up this picture and take a look at this. Modular synths must be configured manually by the user. Connect patch cables between connection points to route audio and modulation data. And this is a super basic configuration where the OSC, the oscillator, is routed to the filter, then the amp, and finally to the speaker. So I'm just going to go ahead and go back over here and connect this one up to the input is here. And then our output here comes over here to the input here. Boop. And now as soon as I connect that up, you can hear it starts making a sound. And here's my oscillator. There's my octave. And here's my fine tuning. And if I connect up a MIDI cable here, I got my CV out one here and go into this one up here. I should be able to, is it not going to do it? Okay, it's not going to do it, hold on. Right, you can hear how it's doing different stuff, making these different sounds. And if I connect up a MIDI cable here, I got my CV out one here and go into this one up here. I should be able to, is it not going to do it? Okay, it's not going to do it, hold on. Right, you can hear how it's doing different stuff, making these different sounds. Right, you can hear how it's doing different stuff, So you get a basic sound. I'm going to go ahead and stop this by disconnecting that, so you can see how this works in a very, very basic way. And you can just follow the pictures. And if you want to, you can actually follow the pictures a little bit more here, but if you don't have a MIDI controller, or in my case, I don't have my MIDI controller set up correctly to work with my my web browser, it's not going to really do any good for you. So don't worry about this page too much. It's not really going to help out a whole lot. And like I said, this is just like a basic thing to show you some stuff. But what we're going to talk about next is with the other lesson. And it talks about how to do this same stuff using the reactor blocks. And that's what I want to focus on. All right, so, but that's just something you can kind of mess around with there. There are many different types of modules out in the world, from common oscillators and filters to weird granular samplers and strange sequencers. And if you want to learn more about modular synths, what you need to do is, well, remember in here, there's this super basic modular synth explanation, which we're not going to watch right now. What is that?
Even if you don't know chords at all, you don't know anything about music theory like me, this is perfect for you.
Blah, blah,
this is super good.
I have no idea who these people are. Okay,
Modular synths.
Right, so this is like a super basic thing about modular synths that you should watch. And it talks about just learning how to patch stuff together and everything. And this is going to help you with doing stuff in Reactor as well, what we're going to talk about here in just a second. So definitely worth checking out. Cool. And as you're going to see today, we can do all sorts of cool stuff. Okay. That ad is super, super annoying. I hate that ad. All right, so cool. All right, thanks, Johnny. Who's Johnny Cashflow? Who's that person? Is that somebody who's actually like part of the class? Maybe. Oh, Jonathan, that's who you are. Okay, cool. All right. Anyway, so that's basically modular synths in a nutshell. Now let's talk about them a little bit deeper though, but let's do it using reactor blocks. And reactor blocks, actually, it's a little bit easier than what this shows. These are old screenshots because they changed it a little while ago. And I kept these screenshots because actually the school never updated their reactor. And so the reactor I'm going to show you, and if you download reactor, you should definitely download the free version of Reactor Player if you haven't already. Here, I'm going to put that in here. Whoops, not you. Go to you. Tab. Go to Native Instruments. I highly recommend that you get the Reactor Player. There we are. I'm going to put this into the chat here. There it is. This is a free download, and it's got some dope stuff. So basically, the blocks base, which you have to also download this as well. It's got some quick start guides, but basically you're going to want this. In here, it's got all these different modules that you can use. And it's got Bento Box in here, some really cool stuff. And we're going to talk about this today, and I'm going to make a patch just using the stuff that comes with the base. So I'm not going to use anything different. I'm just going to use blocks base, and I'm going to make a patch and show you, and you can follow along later when I put the video up online. And also it's right here in the notes. It's all here in the notes. All the stuff I'm going to do is here in the notes. And the notes does go a bit deeper, so if you want to go deeper, you can. I'm going to show you how to do this, but you don't have to make the sequencer thing. The sequencer is like tough. I mean, it's not tough, but it's like deep. The only thing that's different is that the way you connect these things together is not really like this. You can do it like this if you want to, but if you're doing it with the modern version, you don't have to use this anymore. You can actually just stay in the front of stuff, and I'm going to show you how to do that here right now. So I'm going to go into Ableton Live. You can use Pro Tools or whatever you want. You don't have to do Ableton Live. And I'm going to go ahead and get Reactor. I'm going to get Reactor 6, my VST, drag it there, boop. And the Reactor player probably starts a little bit different. I'm not 100% sure how the Reactor player actually starts up. I don't know if it shows you this thing or not. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to select Patch. And in here now it shows me my blocks. Now blocks is basically just modular synthesis for Reactor. And here, see, I've got blocks base, and if you have the real version of Reactor, you've got blocks primes, which has a whole bunch of extra stuff in it. But we're just going to stick with blocks base for today. And so here we've got bento box and we've got utility, just the basic stuff. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to delete a couple things because I don't need them. I'm going to delete the level stereo, which I can just do by clicking and hitting delete. And I'm going to delete the clock for now because I don't need the clock. So you cannot delete the audio in. That's just undeletable. But you could delete these two if you want, but keep the utility note in and keep the audio out. These two things here, we're going to keep that so we can use them in a minute. And basically, this is, if you were following along yesterday, it's very similar to what I was doing yesterday. I'm just going to kind of go through the same thing. What we need first is a oscillator, which is the bento oscillator right here. You need the oscillator. So I'm going to just take that, I'm going to drag it up in here. Boop. And I need a filter, which is right here, the filter. I'm going to drag that over to here. And then the amplifier, the VCA. And that VC, it always, what that stands for is voltage control. Voltage control is what it stands for. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense that it says voltage control amplifier in the digital realm, but actually Reactor can go outside of, if you have a special device to convert this into actually control data, then it can go outside. So, I don't know, maybe it makes sense, but for me in my head, it doesn't really make that much sense. But anyway, so we got this here, the bento box oscillator, the VCF, and the filter, and the amplifier. And if you want to, you can just double click on these and give it a name, oscillator 1, and then filter 1, and then we can just call this one amplifier, or just amp. So you can just double click and name these. Now you'll notice on each one of these things, there's these little circles. These little circles here, and they're labeled out, sign, triangle, and over here. On the left-hand side is the input, and on the right-hand side is the output. And if you look at the notes, it's basically the same. They just have a slightly different look to them. So here's the pitch, gate. These are the outputs. Here's the inputs on the left-hand side, and they're labeled the same. They just look a little bit different. So just use your imagination, think outside the box a little bit, and you'll see how these things correspond to one another. So it's not that big a deal. It's just a slightly cosmetic difference. But the cool part is, because that we're just looking at is actually the inside. It's like the interior of everything, and this is the outside. This is much easier to get to like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my oscillator. I'm going to go out from my oscillator into my filter, and I'm going to go out from my filter into my amplifier, and I'm going to go over here and go out up here, out from my amplifier, and go in to the output here. Now if I turn this up, let me just change my oscillator, and let me change the pitch up here. Now if I turn this up, we can hear that's going to start making a sound. Right? Now up here in the upper right hand corner, you can see when I turn this up down here, that's my overall level. This level right here, if you click it, you can drag it up and down. That's the actual level for the output of Reactor as a whole. So whatever you have going on in Reactor, that's going to be your output up there. And that's important to keep in mind. for later. All right. So we've got our VCA, we've got our oscillator, our filter, our VCA, and now if I turn on my keyboard, let's see, my keyboard is probably not set up correctly, but let's just see what's going on here. Boop, boop. There we go. Let's just move that into place. Cool. So my keyboard, if I play my keyboard, you will notice that nothing is happening. Absolutely nothing is happening. So that's because we need to connect the keyboard to various things to make stuff happen. So first of all, if I want to control my pitch, I'm going to go over here and control my pitch like that. And now, if I turn my level up, put this back to 0. Why? Hold on a second. There we go. Turn that on. So there's my keyboard, it's playing stuff. I actually have another keyboard I set up the other day so I can have more octaves. But there you go, so there's that. Now what you're noticing though is that it's not turning things on and off. So if I want to, what I can do is I can connect up my gate out. And remember, the gate out has to do with the note on, note off. So when I hit a key, it sends the note on. When I let go, it sends note off. So I just take my gate and I connect it up to my VCA and one of my modulation destinations. And remember, we talked about that stuff yesterday. So I'm going to set it into A right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up so every time I click, every time I hit a key on my keyboard, it's going to turn up the amplifier by this much right here. So how I get there is I click on the A right here, and I drag this little line up or down if you wanted to, but in this case we're going to drag it up. And now when I hit a key, it just puts it up that much. Right, so you got that right there. So that's how that works right there. But what you'll notice is that this is not a terribly interesting, there's nothing really interesting going on with this right now. So let's go ahead and set up some, modulation sources in here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna rearrange these a little bit by clicking and dragging. You can click and drag over things to highlight them. And I think, oh, can't you? Oh, well, you used to be able to, hold on, okay. So I'm just going to click these and drag them up here so we can see everything there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here in the bottom and I'm going to put my modulation sources in here. I'm going to use an envelope filter here and I'm going to use 2 of these, and let's use an LFO as well. I'm going to put the LFO before this one here. So this first envelope filter, I'm going to double click it. I'm going to give it a name, amp envelope. And the second one, I'm going to give it a name, filter envelope. And this one I'm just going to call it LFO. And we'll just assign that to something in a little bit here. So I can go in here and I can say, okay, so my amp envelope, first of all, I'm going to disconnect the gate over here. So what I want is I want every time I hit a key on my keyboard, I want to send a message to my envelope to do something. So I'm going to connect the gate to here. So now my gate is connected right there, and I'm going to also connect it to my filter envelope. So I'm going to hit the gate on here to the gate over here. So always you want to have an output going to an input. You always want to have the output going to an input, and that's how that's set up right there. And now I'm going to have my amp control, my envelope control different things over here. So this amp envelope makes sense to send it over to my amplifier input. So remember, this is my destination. I have A and B. I have 2 destinations per module. And my filter envelope, I'm going to have that go over here to my filter. And here there's an A and a B right here. So I'm just going to have it set and go to A as well right there. Now what this means is that I can use my amp envelope to control the amplifier over time. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. I'm going to turn it all the way up. I'm going to turn it off right there, and now I can go down here and mess with my envelope to get my sound to sound pretty. So right now, So I have this sound here. Now let's go ahead and adjust my filter a little bit. All right, there we go. Right, so let's go ahead and let's just program that in real quick. I'm just going to go over here to Ableton Live, make sure we're good there. Okay, let's here. I'm just going to move this around for just a second. Make sure we're okay here. Cool. Let's turn that down. Cool. All right, so we got that there. So let's just get that a little bit slower. Okay. All right, so I got that little line going. Now I can mess around with this as it plays. What I'm going to do is I'm going to assign this envelope here to change the filter a little bit as it goes. And I'm going to have it change the cutoff. So I'm going to click on A because I'm coming into A, and you can see I'm getting signal here. Click on A. Put that there. Awesome, I can change my... Cool, nice to get that, there we go. Now I'm going to go over here and adjust this. Nice. And you can hear as I adjust the sound what it's doing to stuff. You can hear how it's adjusting different, it's changing my sound up here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set my decay and my release at the same point, and I'm going to turn my sustain all the way down. Nice. Now if I want this to kind of wah wah wah, can do some stuff like that. Can make this go higher up. You can hear how it's, making it sound pretty cool actually. Nice. Okay. And so this, just gives you a little taste about like what you can do really quickly with this stuff, okay? So now what I want to do is I want to take my LFO over here, and I want my LFO to go and control, let's have it control my filter as well, okay? So what we're going to do here is with the LFO, we're going to set up this output here to go over here to input B right here, okay? So I'm going to set the output to go to input B right there. And now B, we're going to click on B. See how there's like an A and a B right here? A and B. And so the B part is what's coming from my LFO. That's how much my LFO is going to control stuff. And let's set this here. Let's make this go a little bit faster. So I click on this to change my speed. And you can see here's my speed right there. So if I slow this down, right? So now let's go ahead and hit play. And I've got my B selected right here, over here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn that up as we go. And you hear how it's like changing the sound up. And it's like interacting with the other one, the envelope, right, in a really interesting way. Right? You can hear how that's working out there. And I've literally just got 1, 2, 3 sound modules and the LFO envelope, and 2 envelopes here. It's only got 6 modules in here really, and it's already super cool sounding. And so this is how easy the stuff can be to kind of make stuff like sound cool. So let's just go over here and just check this out here. Let's go through what I just did a little bit here. So what we've got here is the, in this description here, like you can see in the picture here, we've got the note in, which is from our MIDI, it's from our keyboard, and the pitch connects to the pitch, the output of the oscillator connects to the input of the filter, and then the output of the filter connects to the input of the VCA, and the VCA goes out to our 2 speakers over here. And we've got the gate is connected up, but in this case we want to have the gate connects to our ADSR envelope right here. So the gate of the note in goes to our ADSR envelope, and the output of the envelope goes to modulation destination A on the amplifier. And then we can assign, does it talk about that in here? Oh yeah, it talks about it like right over here, how much the level is over here. Set the mod A level so the envelope affects the sound, okay? So that's essentially what we're doing here. We're just setting how much, oh that's right here. So to assign how much modulation will be applied, click the mod A button and a mod amount fader will appear. Adjust the mod A fader to whatever you want. For amplifiers, you probably want the mod amount to be set to 100%. But you really want to listen to it and see what it does for you. Well, let me just turn off the right? Sounds pretty cool. Actually, that would sound a lot cooler if we let's just throw some kind of a beat loop in there real quick. Go down here to my sample phonics, and we'll get to, it's got a dusty hip hop groove. Ooh, boom bap. Let's see. What do we got? Yeah, let's just use that one right there, right? So we got that there. Now, if I want that to poke through a little bit more, go back over here to A. Right, you can hear that's doing that. I can change my B. You can hear how that kind of like works together like that. So this is like I said, this is like really nothing. This is like the beginnings of things, but we're already getting some cool tones. So what happens if we actually start to make this one a little bit more complex? And when I say a little bit, I mean just a little bit more complex, not a whole lot more complex. So let's go ahead and let's add another oscillator into this. And we're going to have a mixer in here as well now. So we're going to go ahead and add another oscillator in here, like this. I'm going to pull these down. I'm holding Shift and clicking on them. I got my oscillator here. And I'm going to go ahead and get this oscillator here. I'm going to pull these down to the bottom because I don't really need those way up top. I'm just going to put them down there because I don't really need to mess around with them too much. I'll need to mess with them a little bit here, but not too much. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the filter here before, I'm going to put the mixer before the filter. I'm going to set this up just like how you would set up, how like the Mini Moog is set up, because that's just a good kind of blueprint for stuff. So I'm just going to drag my mixer here. So I've got the mixer here. You can see over here it's just called Mix. And I'm going to set the pitch to go to my other oscillator here. And the output, I'm going to change this output to go to here. Oops. Output number 1 goes to, output from my oscillator 1 goes to input number 1. And then oscillator number 2 goes to output here, goes into input number 2. So I got our 2 inputs here. And then our output from the mixer is just going to go into the filter. I'm just double clicking and naming these things. Okay. And now turn up the volume. I'm going to give this one an octave up. You can hold shift to lock it in a little bit more. And just with that, it's already sounding, you know, you're already hearing a big difference in the sound. I am not playing any keys to do this right now. I've just programmed in my my beat into Ableton Live or Pro Tools, whatever you're using. It doesn't matter the DAW. But I just programmed my beat into here, and then it shows just doing it by itself. I did that a while ago. And so you can see my MIDI part here. If you look down at the bottom of my screen, this is my MIDI part is just down here. So I just got my MIDI notes down here. And this is what I really recommend whenever you're kind of working on programming stuff, especially if you're like, I want to make a bass sound. Then program a bass sound that sounds kind of cool as you're making it, and then you have something to work with. Not, you know, especially if you're not great at playing the keys or whatever, if you want both your hands to be doing stuff, it's really important, I think, to program something in and then mess around with it as it goes. And that makes it's also more fun because you can just sit there and you can listen to what's happening. And I just dragged and dropped a beat loop in there. I'm not 100% in love with that beat loop. Let's see what that one sounds like. That one's all right, I guess. Oh. Quantize this real quick. There we go. Cool, you know, whatever. It is what it is. Okay, so the point isn't really the beat right now. I just want something that sounds cool while I'm doing this. So we got these two oscillators. Now, again, if I just want to keep making this a bit more complex, I can just keep adding oscillators into here, and we've got this mixer here that can do, 4 different inputs. So let's just add another oscillator. All I do is I come over here to my oscillator here, and I just drag it on in. Let's just drag this over here, and so we've got this one here, which is oscillator 3, and let's just drag another one in. So we have 4 oscillators. Oscillator 4. Boop. There we go. And the output, and all we do is just connect everything up. See, our note in is down here, right? Remember that? I can just scroll down and we can see it. I just drag the pitch up here to the input of each one, the pitch input for each one. And then my output for all of these, I just drag it over to the corresponding number on the mixer. Boom. Now, if you, I'm pretty, I like to have things look a certain way, as y'all probably realized by now. So I'm going to drag these down here like this, and I'm going to drag my oscillators up here like this. So everything kind of goes in an order. So I got 1, 2, 3, and 4 over here. I'm going to just drag this to make it a bit bigger so we can see all of them. Great. And so oscillators 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then my mixer is here. Here's my mixer, goes into my filter, my amplifier, and it goes to my output right here. These are my envelopes and filters. These are my modulation sources. They're not actually touching the sound. So all the sound is just in this area right up here. This is where all my sound is. None of this down here has anything to do with the sound. And honestly, I haven't even touched this stuff. I set up the basics of what I wanted, and now I've got them right here. So I go over here and let's say oscillator 3. Let's put this one up 2 octaves. Come on there, up to 24. And we're going to take this one, we're going to keep, let's make this one into a square wave with the pulse width be pretty narrow. And I'm just going to hear what that sounds like. I'm gonna mute this one. There we go. Put this one back. Now, with this one down here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this one back into like a triangle wave. That's gonna be like a deeper waveform. Yeah. Because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my upper harmonic frequencies from these other oscillators here, and I'm gonna get my sub meatiness from this one over here. I don't want it to be a pure sine wave though. I can make it into a pure sine wave, but I want it to be a triangle wave to get it just just so it does have some harmonics in there, a little bit thicker than what a pure sine wave would be. Let's just crank this one up far and see what that sounds like. Nice. And that sounds kind of cool. It's kind of got an interesting tone to it. Let's just change this as it plays. What I want you to focus on here is mute all these here. You can hear if I give it a little bit more towards the sawtooth, or the sawtooth, every now and then those harmonics poke through in the top. That's cool. Now let's give that a little bit of reverb in my session here. So I'm just going to go ahead and send that over to my reverb. Let's just make sure we got the good reverb on. We're going to make this like just a room reverb, nothing special. And that changes the sound up a lot right there. Cool. Now remember, we have all these, so basically what's happening is our audio is going in, all four of these are just playing straight in to the mixer, and then our filter is being applied. So let's go ahead and see what it sounds like. Let's take that LFO off the filter, and the way we do this is we go over here to our B, because remember, the LFO is over here going to input B. Going from our output here to input B right there. Then we come up here and we go to B, and I'm just going to turn it down all the way by double clicking it. If I go over to A, we can see how much this envelope's affecting things for our filter here. And we can mess with our envelope down here to make it change things. Excuse me, sorry. Right, so that is how that works there. These are, like, again, I know it's starting to look more complicated, but if you watch this from the beginning and you kind of watch it again and again a couple times, you're going to see it's actually not that complicated, and the notes have it all right here in the notes. All right, so it's all right there in the notes. Cool. So, yep. What I'm going to do is we're going to pause here, and we're going to in the next section we're going to add a sequencer into this, and we're going to start making it more complicated. I just want to show you where you can go with this, like a little bit more complicated, not a ton more complicated, but a little bit more complicated. Not that you need to go this complicated with the sequencer, what I'm about to add in, but you can. So, but we're going to take a break now. Let's take a break for 15 minutes. Be back at 11 o'clock. And we're going to come back here. We're not going to Zoom. We're coming back right here.